everybody, I'm back. I'm so excited to be here and share my birth story with you guys today. It's day 4 and we are loving it and getting used to our new normal, just adjusting and trying to figure out what we're doing. So I finally had a second to just sit down, and I wrote down everything actually, so you can see here I'm going off notes here because I didn't want to forget anything. I've just had so many of you guys ask details, and I really wanted to just put that out there for whoever's interested. And also, I thought it was really important for me to record this for myself so that later on I can look back on it and just remember everything and soak in, every detail. So our photographer actually missed our labor and delivery because it happened so fast, and so the photos that I really wanted to get as far as like in the midst of it all, we didn't really get to get those, so I'm just going off of memory, Tez's memory, things are documented, things like that. So this is to the best of my knowledge, every single detail. I can't promise how long this is going to be. I'm going to try to just stick to the facts and try not to get too far off. If you hear baby crying in the background, well, that's our new normal, so just go with it. Daddy's in there with him right now. So let's just go ahead and get started, and yeah, I'm just so excited to share this information with you guys. So I'll start off by saying that everything was perfect. Well, I take that back. Not everything was perfect. Everything was perfectly okay. It didn't go exactly how I planned, which I was totally fine with. So that's kind of like, with me planning everything out. But I was really flexible and tried to be open-minded about everything. And so things came up, we dealt with them, moved on. So, but I will say that I'm 120% pleased with our experience and everything. It was as close to perfect as I could ever have imagined. And I'm just so happy that it went the way that it did. So on Tuesday, March 24th, if you see me looking down, that's because I'm literally looking at my notes, because like I said, I don't want to forget anything. Okay, so 6:30 a.m. I woke up to go to the chiropractor like I always do. My chiropractor appointments are at 7:30, and I went to the bathroom, I peed, and whenever I stood up, I turned over to the side to like brush my teeth, and like water came out. It wasn't a big gush. It wasn't like, oh, I just peed on myself, because obviously I just peed in the toilet. But it was like more than normal, but I don't know. I didn't know. As a first time mom, it's really hard to know for sure what's going on. So I was like, well, you know what? Let me just go ahead and call the midwife and let her know what's going on. And, we'll just do that. So I went ahead and called the midwife, and the one that was on call is like our favorite midwife. There's 6 midwives there, and we've only actually met 4 of them, but she is our absolute favorite. And I had been praying to be placed with the midwife that needed to deliver our baby with us. And so whenever she answered the phone, I was like, oh, thank goodness, I'm so happy it's her. So I was like, hey, what do you want us to do? Whatever. So she said, you know what? Go ahead and come into the birth center at 11:30. We'll check you. We'll see if it's amniotic fluid. We'll see if it's your water breaking. There's always the risk of like premature rupture of membranes, which is not a good thing, things like that. And for those of you that don't know, once your water breaks, you have a 24-hour time clock that starts. And so you have to go into labor by 24 hours. There's just a risk of infection and other things like that. So it's pretty important to figure out if that is what it is. So I went ahead and went to the chiropractor at 7, got that taken care of, got an adjustment. He was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, if that's your water, let's do a really good adjustment today. He's crying. See, this is hard because then I like want to leave and go fix that, but I'm not. I'm just gonna stay here and finish this with you guys and let Daddy take care of it. Okay, where was I? So I went to the chiropractor, came home, took a nap, ate a big breakfast because I thought, this is labor, I need to get hydrated, I need to get fueled, let's do this. So go to the birth center, got checked, not my water breaking, not amniotic fluid, don't know what happened. So I was like, man, and I had already kind of texted some people and told them, and you know, my mucus plug had come out like 2 weeks ago, which is a pretty good sign that labor's getting started, and that didn't even happen. So it was just like a bunch of false alarms, and I was like, I felt like the boy who cried wolf. Like I just kept feeling like, oh, this is it. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, this is it. No, it's not. So I was pretty upset. When they checked me, they also saw that I had a pretty bad yeast infection, which I had already been diagnosed with like 2 weeks ago when my membranes ruptured, I mean, whenever my mucus plug dropped. So we were like, well, you know what? That's not good. Let's go ahead and get back on the meds that I was on for that. So we went ahead, got that taken care of. I thought maybe that had something to do with the discharge that I had. No idea. And she said, you know what, you could just have a teeny tiny leak that is leaking out fluid, and then in 24 hours or so, your water will actually break. But at this time, it's not your water. So I was like, all right. So came home, started doing all that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I came home, cleaned the entire apartment, like literally the patio outside, the windows, like things that I've never cleaned before in my life. I just started cleaning. It's like my body was going into overdrive and getting ready. However, if I had known what was going to happen the next day, I probably would have just taken a long, long nap. But, so here we are. So I went ahead, cleaned everything, got everything ready. And Tez and I go for a walk at this little community down the street from us. And so we got dressed, we went down, we got in the car, went over there to get some fresh air, and I stepped out of the car, and then boom, gush, water. Definitely my water this time. So the midwife had told me to put like a little pad in, and so I had like pad, panties, and then yoga pants. And so it soaked through all of that, and I was like, okay, this is definitely it. Like, this is it, yay. So I called her, and I was like, okay, so this is definitely my water. What do you want me to do now? So she said, originally, she's like, you know what? Just go ahead and monitor your contractions. Are you having any yet? I was not having any contractions yet. So I was like, okay, we'll monitor the contractions, you know, see if they pick up or whatever. But at that point, we were on a 24-hour time clock. So 6:30 a.m., we thought water broke. It didn't. 6:30 p.m., it actually broke. So 6:30 p.m. on the 25th, which was Wednesday, would have been our cutoff. So I was like, okay, we'll do that. So she said, go about your normal day. You know, if you're going for a walk, go for your walk. Do what you got to do. And then just go home and try to get some rest and monitor your contractions. Also, whenever I got checked earlier in the day, whenever they did my amniotic fluid test to see if it was my water, she checked me and I was 0 centimeters dilated. So we were like, oh crap. So whenever my water broke, I was like, oh no, I'm 0 centimeters dilated. That's like not a good sign, because I'm a first-time mom. You know, usually it takes forever to be, like when you're a first-time mom, your labor is the longest it's ever going to be. Kids 2 and 3 usually are faster. So she told us to just chill and do that. I was like, okay. So then she calls back about 30 minutes later. She goes, you know what, Amber, I totally forgot. You're not dilated. Like, let's go ahead and have you come into the birth center, and I'm going to put in a balloon catheter, and that will help you start dilating, because we're already on that 24-hour time clock. You were 0 centimeters. I really don't want you to be in labor any longer than you have to, and this will just kind of help to get that party started. So I was like, okay, perfect. You know, I was actually, whenever I've talked about induction before and things that you can do to be induced, there's medications and all that. I didn't want any of that, but I really was okay with having the Foley balloon put in place. And so, you know, it's reversible. Like if it's not doing what it's supposed to do, you can just take it out and no harm. There's no harm to baby or mom. There's literally no risks at all of putting this thing in. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. If it's going to help me get dilated, like let's come in to do that. So we went ahead and went into the birth center. That was at 8 p.m. So it's obviously after hours, and so the medical assistant wasn't there. And so she actually had Tez help her put this balloon in. So I'm going to try to explain it to you the best that I can. So basically the balloon goes into your cervix. Okay, so your cervix is like here if it's closed, right? And then as you dilate, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then baby can boom, come out. Okay, so your cervix first has to thin out, so it's really, really thick during pregnancy. I don't know how thick, so like don't quote me on this, but anyway, so it's really thick. And then as you start to progress your last few weeks and stuff, it starts to thin out, okay? So my cervix was already pretty thin. Like I was 90% effaced, which means I was like almost at 100%, which means your cervix is good to go. Now all it has to do is separate. So first, the thickening is what matters. Get that down. Boom. I was already pretty much here whenever she checked me. And then also the next thing is to dilate. Okay, so basically this Foley catheter thing goes inside this little space right here. Okay, so what it looks like is it's just literally like a teeny little tube. It's like the size of a straw, and it's just like floppy. Okay, so if you've ever heard of like a Foley catheter for someone that it helps to drain their urine out, this is the same idea, but instead it goes into your vagina instead of your like pee hole or whatever. So you have to go in there. So she had to go in there with her fingers, right? Find my cervix. Okay, so she finds it, and then she has to thread the needle basically. She basically like has to put that little tube in and send it in and insert it into my cervix, okay? At the end of that little tube is this balloon, and at first it's just flat. Once you stick it in there though, at the bottom of this tube, you insert a little syringe with water, saline water, and you push it in, and it expands that little balloon, which then puts pressure in your cervix, okay? So your cervix is here. It puts pressure to help you dilate, okay? So it's a lot of pressure. It doesn't really feel that great. But basically what it does is it dilates, it puts mechanical pressure on there. And so it just kind of helps your body just kick that into gear and go, oh yeah, we're having a baby, like let's get this going. So you insert it, and then over time, it's supposed to help you dilate to 3 to 4 centimeters. I've heard some people that it's helped them dilate to 6 or 7. I've heard some people say that it didn't help them at all. So, but the average is about 4 centimeters, okay? So once it dilates to 4 centimeters, once the balloon is doing its job and it's expanded your cervix, that little thing will just fall out. Okay, so let me put this picture in your head. So you've got this balloon inside of you, right, up here, that you can't see, obviously. Then you've got the tube that's connected to it, and that comes out of the vagina, and then it hangs down like the side of your leg, which is like super uncomfortable. It's like a tail between your legs. So since the medical assistant wasn't there, Tez got to help her actually put that in, which was crazy. At this point, I was pretty tired of things going up my vagina. So wasn't really excited about it, but again, help me dilate, let's do it. So as she has her fingers in there, she's trying to put this tube in, and she's like, Amber, you're not dilated at all. She told me it was like trying to stick a spaghetti noodle through a buttonhole. Okay, that's not really like a good picture, but that's what's happening inside my vagina. So she manually had to like stick her finger up there and dilate me to at least a 1 so that she could get that tube in there. So that didn't feel very good, obviously, if you can like try to imagine that. So she dilated me to a 1, and then was able to slide the tube up in there. And so while she was doing all of this, Tez was at the bottom with the saline syringe, and he like actually manually pushed that water in there to help it like insert. And he was actually helping her sterilize everything. It was so funny. I have pictures of that. So anyways, okay, so we get that in. She told me that like my cervix is really pissed off. That's exactly what she said. She said, your cervix is pissed off. So like you're going to get very crampy over the next couple of hours because I just manually sent you into labor. Which was okay with me because I was like, we need to get this ball rolling. So that, you know, if I would have gone into labor like naturally on my own, water breaks, I'm having contractions, things like that, we wouldn't have had to do any of this. But again, we were on that time clock. She wanted me. So real quick, usually what a Foley does is you stick it in there, it has its effects or whatever, you have a couple of little cramps here and there, but that's it. And then you can go home and take a nap or go to sleep. Literally, you can usually just sleep through it. I've heard women say they just went home. I mean, it was obviously uncomfortable because they have a little tail hanging out of their little vagina, but it just kind of like, you know, sticks to the side, and then you can basically just like put a little piece of tape on it or just let it hang there, whatever you want to do. Okay, that was not my experience at all. So I'm having these little cramps, right? I'm doing that. And then she starts telling me what we're going to experience. So we're at the birth center for quite a while, like probably an hour after it's all said and done, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know. So get the Foley put in. She's like, okay, you're good to go. I started cramping immediately. It was like period cramps, okay, but like just a little bit worse at first. And so it was like okay, I'm on my period. I need to take some medicine. And then it's like, okay, a couple hours later, it was like, all right, I'm on my period. And now I have like diarrhea cramps on top of that, or like gas pains or whatever. It just like continuously got worse. Okay, so we get home. And also like these cramps were happening on the way to the birth center on the way back. So like in the car, that was really bad. Also, this thing is leaking like everywhere. So we get home, I pulled out my panties to go to the bathroom, and that thing is filled with blood. And I'm like, what? Like, she didn't tell us this was gonna happen. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I call. I'm like, Lisa, that's our midwife's name. I was like, Lisa, it's bleeding everywhere. And I didn't know until I was like sitting like literally right here on the edge of the bed, because I was having like one of those cramp things. And so I was just like leaned over the side of the bed like this. And I looked down and like blood is going everywhere. And so like we got blood on the duvet and like on the floor. It was not good. And Tez is like, oh my gosh, what's happening? So I went to the bathroom, found out it's like leaking blood. So I'm like freaking out. Call her. She said, oh, that's totally normal. You know, would have been nice to know, but that's okay. It's totally normal. You know, your body is just like having a moment because I just basically ruptured your, like dilated you. So it's just pissed off. Okay, cool, whatever. So over the next couple of hours, it's leaking, it's leaking, it's leaking. It's pissing me off. So Tez literally finds this funny way to do this. He sticks a water bottle on the end of it so that the catheter is inside the water bottle, and duct tapes the top of it so that all that leaking is just going into that water bottle. So I literally had like a water bottle like flopping in between my legs, but at that point I did not care. Okay, so I keep going. So again, it starts at 8 o'clock. It's like 10:30 and it's been like 2 hours and there's no sign of stopping. It's actually getting worse. So with a contraction, what happens is you have a start, a beginning, a middle, and an end basically. So it starts and you can feel it, right? It's like, okay, here's another one. Got it. Okay, boom, boom, boom. It's like going up a roller coaster. They say roller coaster or like a wave. Picture like riding waves. So you go, 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 go. It starts to get worse, worse, worse. It peaks. That's like the worst part, is like this hump right here. And then it starts to like ease off a little bit, and then it stops, and then you have a break, right? Okay, so you have like contraction, rest, contraction, rest. Okay, so I knew that's what a contraction felt like, or not felt like, but I knew that that's what it was described as. These cramp things that I were having were not that. It literally was just that peak and then stop, peak and then stop. It was like the worst part of a contraction and then nothing. So I had no warning. They would just come out of nowhere. So first it was just like kind of crampy. Okay, I'm on my period, whatever. Then it became like waves, but actually not the wave, just like the peak and then the stop, and the peak and the stop. So it was horrendous because I did not expect that, and it also never stopped. It got worse. So basically I started timing them because I was like, are these contractions? Are they not contractions? Like, you know, my body's probably gonna be going into labor soon, so this could be like transitioning into some contractions, but I couldn't tell. There was like no start and finish, and it was just very confusing. And so I started to kind of get a little worried about it because I'm like, this is not normal. But I did start timing them, but there was no start and finish. Like I said, it was just like out of nowhere. By the time I would tell Tez like start, I mean, he'd get his phone and it was like, okay, now it's over. So they started off about like 10 to 15 seconds long, and then I'd have like, you know, 2 or 3 minutes in between. But eventually, like in the middle of the night, so I laid down to try and get some rest about 11:30. We ate dinner, which was like a 6-inch Subway sandwich, because I was like taking a bite and then like would have one of those cramps and like, oh my God, I'm dying, and then try to eat another bite really quick before. Was trying to get hydrated, trying to eat, but I just couldn't. So I just was like, you know what, let me lay down, get into my like relaxation mode, and maybe it'll stop. So I do. I lay down, you know, Tez is just like rubbing my back, doing whatever I need to do, whatever he needs to do to try to help me. And so I fall asleep around like 11:30 probably, and woke up around 1:30, but I remember just waking up the entire time that was happening. So I really didn't get 2 hours of sleep. I just kind of was like on and off sleeping for 2 hours basically. But I got up at 1:30 and I was like, okay, can't do this anymore in bed. So I got up, I'm walking around, I'm using my yoga ball, I'm using the couch, I'm using the table. I finally got into the shower. Tez woke up. I try not to wake him up because I really wanted him to save his energy for that, for like actual labor. And so I was like, you know what, let me just get in the shower. But he woke up, he came in there, and I was like, I started to cry because I was like, this is not normal. And at this point, they were lasting anywhere from a minute to a minute and a half, that like excruciating pain. And I was only having about 30 seconds of rest in between. So like even contractions aren't that bad, because you, with a contraction, it only lasts about 60 seconds and you have anywhere from like 2 to 10 minutes in between each one, depending on how far along you are in labor. So since I have talked about the Foley, I've actually had a couple of y'all message me and say that that was y'all's experience too, that the Foley was horrendous. But I also have a really good friend that had the Foley put in and like went to sleep for 7 hours, woke up, did her makeup, 3 hours later started having contractions, had her baby naturally, and it was fine. So like, you just never know how your body's gonna react to some things. So that was horrible. So I'm in the bathtub, I start to cry. I'm just getting really anxious and nervous because I'm like, this isn't right. These aren't contractions. The balloon has not fallen out. I'm not dilated. I don't know what's happening. This is not like all the things I researched. This just wasn't in that. So I start to freak out a little bit, and I'm trying to keep my mind right in the mindset, because labor and delivery is all, or laboring with no medication is all about just relaxing and getting in that mindset and just trying to let your body do what it needs to do. And I could tell I was getting out of that mindset, and it was starting to scare me. So we called the midwife at 3:30, and she's, so from 8 till 3:30, I'm dealing with this, right? And so it's exhausting. So I'm already exhausted when we start this whole process. So we call the midwife. By this point, it is Wednesday, March 25th. So we called the midwife at 3:30, and she said, I was literally couldn't talk. So I had to tell Tez what to say. It took me like 2 or 3 like little rest breaks in between to get everything that I wanted to tell her. And then he was able to like relay all the information to her and tell her. And she's like, okay, yeah, you know, that doesn't really sound right. She should have had it fall out at least by now. Those don't sound like contractions. Y'all go ahead and let's meet up at the birth center and figure out what's going on. So I was like, okay, at least I can get to the birth center, right? And have some answers and figure out what's going on. She said that once she wanted to take it out, basically. She's like, it doesn't sound like it's doing its job. Let's just take it out and give her some rest. She said that whenever it comes out, that mechanical dilation will stop, right? It'll stop putting pressure on your cervix, and you'll just be able to just relax for a little bit. And then she said if she takes a nap for a few hours, maybe her body will just naturally start to dilate. So I was like, oh, a nap, yes. Like, I've been up for 24 hours at this point, and I'm exhausted. So because I got up at 6:30 in the morning before, and now it's, you know, 3:30 in the morning. So it's almost been 24 hours. So we get up to the birth center. It's about 5:30. She goes up in there, she checks the balloon, and she's like, oh, Amber, like, so again, I wanted to labor at home for as long as possible. I thought to myself, I'm not even at a 4. This is horrible. Like, my body's just not doing what it needs to do, which made me whirlwind into like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to deliver at the hospital and blah, blah, blah. And also right now with all the craziness going on, the midwives are not allowed to deliver at the hospital. So they were, but they're not right now. They're having to just drop their patients off at the front door and see you later, which not okay with me. So, so this is all going through my mind, right? So we get to the birth center, 5 o'clock. She removes the balloon. When she gets in there, she's like, oh, Amber, it already has fallen out of your cervix. It's just sitting in your vaginal canal. But you were so clenched up because it hurt so bad that it wasn't able to just fall out like it's supposed to. I was like, yeah, I've been holding on for dear life. So she just like popped it out really fast, and I was already at a 4. So I was like, oh, at least I'm at a 4. Now I can take a nap. Let me just have like a, 15-minute power nap. I would even take 15 minutes at this point. And, then I can just relax. Well, while I'm on the table, right? So I'm like on the table, she's checking me. Yeah, my boobs are ginormous. Okay, just don't even look down there. It's a whole thing. That's a whole nother episode. So while I'm down there, while she's down there, she's like, are you having some back pains? And I'm like, yeah, I am. She goes, Amber, your baby is sunny side up, which is like worst case scenario, okay, for a position for baby. That means that his face is facing the same way as my face. So like he's literally in my belly like this, like facing this direction. for whatever reason, that's the worst position because they have to go all the way around and do a complete 180 to turn around to then come out of the birth canal. So it takes longer and it's more painful. And as they're turning, it starts to put pressure on your muscles and your back. And so you have not only contractions in your front, but contractions in your back also, which is what's happening to me. So she's like, we have to turn him. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what now? Because this whole time, Kingsley's been facing the left. He's been in a good position. The chiropractor's checked to make sure he's there. Like, he's been there the whole time. And now all of a sudden, he's sunny side up, which is worse. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like fun. She said, no, you're going to hate this. It's going to be probably the worst pain you've ever felt. I'm like, okay, great way to prelude that. So we're using the Webster technique, which is like a chiropractor technique that they kind of use over time sometimes. Spinning Babies sometimes uses it also. There's different like forms of this technique. So if you just Google Webster technique, a lot of things will pop up. But basically what she had me do is lay like on the table. So I'm like laying on the table flat right here. So this is my back and these are my legs. Okay, so I'm on the exam table. And if you've ever been pregnant or not, either way, just imagine like it's already uncomfortable for you to lay flat whenever you're pregnant on your back because your belly is so big and it's putting so much stretch on those muscles, on your abdominal muscles, that whenever you lay flat on your back, it just stretches that out even more and it hurts. Okay, so I usually sleep like on my side in the fetal position. So laying on my back flat already hurts a little bit. It's uncomfortable. Then she wanted me to literally put my legs like hanging off the exam table with my feet dangling with no stool or anything underneath, okay? So like, I'm gonna try not to show y'all any of my goodies, but basically I'm like sitting on the exam table like this with my butt and I'm laying back like this and my legs are just dangling right here. Okay, so it was horrible. Just that position itself was horrible. Then I had to supposedly relax my lower back and my pelvis and just like let my butt sink into the table while my legs dangled over and my belly is like this, right? Like huge, stretching over. And I had to do that for 2 contractions. I had to sit there and wait for 2 contractions to show up. And I guess what that does is basically you're super stretched out and your baby's just like stretched to the front of you like this and is super uncomfortable. And so they're like, oh my God, what is happening? And so they just like kind of start to turn themselves like this and get into a better position, I guess. Okay, so that was horrendous. Just leave it at that. Okay, so I do get through that. I'm like, but you know what? Labor's probably gonna be worse, so let's just do it. So I get through that because I was thinking in my head, I get to rest after this. If I just get through this, I can go take a nap. Okay, no. So I start heading upstairs. So the birth suites are upstairs. There's 2 birth suites. Each birth suite, I'll just set the scene for you. So there's like, you walk in, there's a full kitchen. It's basically like a 1-bedroom apartment. So you walk in, there's a full kitchen. There's like a little nook cranny shelf thing there where they have like essential oils going and a Bluetooth speaker going and all that. There's a big like king size bed in the middle of the room with like a little stool like this at the end or like a little couch at the end. There's a full bathroom, sink, toilet, shower, bathtub. And then in the little separate room over there is the actual like birthing tub that's ginormous, like hot tub type look. Okay, so I'm just focusing on getting upstairs. Just get upstairs, just get upstairs. So we're heading upstairs and Lisa's like, okay, Amber, we're not gonna waste these stairs. We're gonna do lunges all the way up and I want you to do squats when you get up to the top. So I'm like, okay. So the crampiness had kind of stopped, right? After they removed the balloon. So I was like, yay, I'm so excited. Cramps have stopped. And so I start walking up the stairs and I'm doing my lunges. So I'm like skipping, I'm doing like two steps to this way, 2 steps this way, 2 steps this way. Okay, so there's like stairs, a little block, and then stairs, a little block, and then the room is right up there. Okay, so I am like, yay, no more contractions. I feel good. My stomach feels great. Like I just get to rest. So I'm going up the stairs. I get to that first little stop and I start to have a contraction. And I'm like, what? No. This wasn't the deal. The deal was I got to rest. And this is not resting. So I'm like, Lisa, what the hell? And she's like, it's okay. Like, you know, you might not have another one for like 30 minutes or something. So I'm like, okay. So I get through my contraction, and she kind of gives me some pointers on like what to do and stuff. So she basically wanted me to just like stand, like lean on Tez like this and put all of my weight on him, spread my legs really wide and just kind of like sway my hips side to side like this. Okay, so I'm like doing that. So I do the squats or do the lunges all the way up the next flight of stairs. Okay, so then I get to the top of the stairs, I start to have another contraction. It's only been like 3 minutes. I'm like, what? No, this isn't right. But again, contractions are irregular and can go all over the place. So I was like, whatever. I can see the bed. I can see it in the right there. Let me just get to the bed. So I start to get into the bed. I start on my side, so I'm side lying. I have a pillow in there, and they start to get everything going. Okay, so we've got my music going, which is Lauren Daigle, which is praise and worship music. I've got that going. I listened to it my entire pregnancy. Kingsley has one song that he loves so much. It's actually called Look Up Child, which is funny. Whenever it starts to play, he would go crazy in my stomach. So if I couldn't feel him sometimes and be like a little worried, I'd turn on the song and he would automatically start to go crazy. So that song came on, and you know, and all of her music was on, and so that was playing. They dimmed the lights. Essential oils are just going, you know, got diffusers and everything going. So I'm like in my zen, trying to just get into that mindset. Okay, so going through it, yay. So I'm in the side lying, then I'm going through some contractions. Well, guess what? They're coming regularly. They're like every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes. Like, we weren't timing them because at that point it didn't really matter, but I was already at a 4, right? So again, timeline here, so 5:30 a.m. I'm at a 4 centimeters, and she kept saying like, by this afternoon, by tonight, you're gonna have a baby. You know, that's what kept me going, was like, okay, just like the rest of the day and I'm good. Well, as I'm having these contractions, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going till this afternoon, till this evening. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this all day. I'm not gonna do it. Side note, I was really looking forward to get to the birth center because they had the nitrous oxide gas mask, which is like a pain relief method that midwives use, and I was so excited to try it. You know, it's just laughing gas, and so it doesn't take the pain away. It just kind of helps you get a little bit more like not really super worried about the pain. So whenever we were downstairs, we were doing the whole turning the baby thing. I was like, well, can I have the nitrous for this since it's going to be so miserable? And she looks at me and she goes, Amber, because of the coronavirus, we're not able to use the nitrous. Let me just tell y'all, I almost got in the car and drove myself to the hospital. I was like, what? And I think I almost just started crying, and she's like, you know, you don't need it. We don't even have to, we're not going to use that. You don't need that. You're here. We got this, yada, yada. So she's encouraging me. I'm like listening to it. Cool. So I explained that as it being like you're on a 20-mile hike in the middle of nowhere in the desert, okay? And you know that there's a water bottle waiting for you at the end of that 20 miles. And you're just trying to make it there. And then you get there and somebody drank that water. And also, there's no refills. There's no water ever coming to you. So, good luck. That's what it was like. That's what it felt like to me. Okay, so now I'm in the bed. I'm on my side, right? I'm laboring. Tez is in front of me. Every time I had a contraction, I would just hold his forearms like this, like both of his forearms. And I would just stare at him and just like I was getting my breathing going. He's got my positive affirmations, my birth affirmations, which are in here somewhere. Oh, I should have had them close by. Anyways, they're somewhere. But so he was reading them like, you are strong, you are capable, you are worthy, you are safe, your baby is safe, Kingsley is safe, Kingsley loves you, you love Kingsley. Like all these different things, all these Bible verses. You are made for such a time as this. Just all these things that are just in my head. I've been reciting them all of my pregnancy. So I'm just like soaking it all in. My midwife is like, hey, Amber, is it okay if I ask the student midwife to come? And I'm like, yes, I'm so happy. So there was this student midwife named Ashlyn, and she is, like I said, a student, and I met her at our other appointments, and she and I just clicked. I don't know how old she is. I would say like late 20s, early 30s maybe. Sweetest person in the whole world. And I just, for some reason, was like, I would love it if she was at my birth. And so she was. And I was like, yes, please bring her. So my support people were Tez, my midwife, Lisa, and then Ashlyn, the student. So at this point, Ashlyn's gotten there. Like I said, I'm on my side. Tez is in front of me. I'm looking at him breathing, trying to get through each contraction. Lisa is like on my feet. So she's rubbing essential oils on my feet, massaging my feet. And then Ashlyn's in the back, laying in bed next to me or behind me. And she's like putting pressure on my hips. She's massaging my back. She's rubbing. They had like 4 different essential oils going, like one on my face, one on my back, one on my belly, one on my legs, each of them doing a different purpose. It was, so I didn't have time. I got into the mindset. I didn't have time to get into that, like, body is just relaxed. I've got my breathing going. I'm just like a limp noodle, like you're supposed to be. I didn't have time for that transition because I didn't get a break. I've been up since 6:30. It is this point, it is 6:30 the next morning. I've been up for 24 hours. I labored at home for so long with no break or 30 seconds of break in between. I had like 4 car rides back and forth of having those horrible cramps. I've had the Foley balloon put in. I've had that taken out. I've had things put up my vagina and taken out. I've had the Webster turning situation go on. I've had all these things happen, and so I didn't have a second to get myself into that mindset. So I was already kind of getting overwhelmed, and it was almost like the contractions were just taking over me, and I was trying to consume myself in between each one, like get it together, get it together, get it together. But right before I would get it together, another one would start, and I just felt defeated. So Lisa's doing her thing down there. Ashlyn's doing her thing back here. Tess is in front of me. We're just getting through them. You know, the contractions, I don't even know. Like, people keep asking me, is it as bad as you thought? Yeah, I mean, probably, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really know what to expect pain-wise. It's a different kind of pain, so I knew there was an end to this, and this is pain with a purpose. And I kept reciting that to myself. This is for a purpose. So I guess I would say it's about what I expected. Again, I knew that there was no medication option. So whenever you don't even have that in your head, I guess you just deal with it. If you're in the hospital, you know that you can get an epidural anytime. You know that there's pain med options. You know that there's like all these different scenarios. At the birth center, there's just not, and that's what I needed. I needed it to just not be an option for me. And so it wasn't, and I was in the mindset, and I got there. And at one point, Lisa said, I'm going to pray over you guys. So she's got her hand on my belly, hand on Tez. She's just praying and praying and praying. It's just so magical and spiritual, and it's just like, it's just consuming me and just trying to like calm me and put me in this little net of like coverage and like a blanket of just security and safety, and just being aware of what's going on with my body and listening to my body and just surrendering. And I just had to surrender. I didn't have any, I couldn't stay in my head. I was in my head. Lisa kept saying, you're in your head, get out of your head. And I remember literally screaming out loud, get out of your head, get out of your head, just trying to tell my body what to do. I had Tez talk to Kingsley each contraction and just say, Mama's fine, you're okay, Mama can't wait to meet you, we're right here with you. And so that really helped me. And then again, like the affirmations, the Bible verses, all of that, Lisa praying over us, it was just so spiritual. I remember Lisa saying, like, and all this is like hormones, so y'all just got to bear with me because this I don't think is stopping anytime soon. So I remember Lisa saying, you know, I really want you to think of this as a worship experience. I just need you to get in worship mode. I need you to get in thanking your Savior for saving everyone, and for you to be able to be here, and for you to be able to have your son. And this is not you that's going through this. This is God. He's working. You're the vessel for Kingsley to arrive. You know, God is doing the work here. You're just a vessel. And so I just kept thinking of myself as just like a tool. Like, I'm just a tool. I just need to be used. I just need to be let happen what needs to happen, basically. And so that was really helpful for her to say that. I want you to think of this as a spiritual worship experience. And so I changed my mindset a little bit and just started to just say, okay, God, like, take over, do what you need to do, because I'm here. You've got Kingsley, you've got me, like, let's just do this. And at that point, my contractions were, I was able to kind of overcome them a little bit better. And so, yeah, so that's kind of set the scene. Like I said, I wish there were photos of this, but our photographer didn't make it in time because everything happened so fast. I would be really curious to see what it looked like from afar, because I'm sure it would have been really beautiful, but I feel that, and I don't think I could ever not feel that. It was just the most glorious, magical thing ever. Okay, so next I'm laboring on my side. Then I'm like, you know what? I need to stand up. I need to move. Let's get this baby out. Let's use some gravity. Let's do this. So I hop up. I'm standing. I'm like over the bed like this. Like my shoulders and stuff are on the bed, and like my hips are back. Tez is behind me, just rubbing me, talking to me, whatever. I'm swaying my hips side to side. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I have this urge to like push. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what? This is way too soon, because I know in my head that it's only been like maybe an hour since I was at a 4, and you have to be at a 10 before you can start pushing. So if you start to push too early, it'll put pressure down there. Your cervix can really get inflamed, and then you can have postpartum hemorrhage. You can start to bleed. It can be really bad. So if you start to push too early, 1, you lose all your energy, and 2, it can be really dangerous for you. So I was like, I was sitting there like this, and Lisa, my midwife, was like in my face right here in front of me, and she's just like staring me down and just like telling me what I need to hear and everything. It was so crazy, because at one point I remember doubting myself once. I doubted myself one time. That was it. And I remember going, am I gonna be okay? Am I gonna get through this? Like, is this the right place for me? Should I have delivered in a hospital? Like, just all these doubts just started flooding in. And I didn't even say anything out loud, but Lisa got in my face and she goes, Amber, you were made for this. You are fine. You're going to do this. We're going to get through this. I mean, like, she answered every single question that I didn't ask out loud. It was the most insane thing ever. That's just what kept happening. It was like God was literally right there speaking through different people in different ways. And it was just like, why am I freaking out? Like, he's literally right here. So I was like, she was right in front of my face, and I start to like, I guess I looked really confused, and she goes, do you need to push? And I said, and she's like, all right, listen to your body, do what you need to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I start to push a little bit, and it's just like little mini pushes. I was trying not to do too much, because again, I knew that I needed to really save that energy. And then she goes, you know what I want you to do? I want you to go to the bathroom, empty your bladder, because I felt like every time I was having a contraction, I was about to pee on myself. And it's really important to empty your bladder and your bowels if you feel it during labor and you can, go do it. So I was like, I need to pee. And she's like, okay, go empty your bladder and come back. We're going to check you and make sure that you're at a 10, because you can't be pushing if you're not. I was like, okay. So we go to the bathroom. I'm on the toilet. I'm having some contractions in there. And they are like, okay, it's time to get the tub ready, because I really wanted to deliver in the tub. So they are like frantically going around and like doing all this stuff, because again, I have dilated from a 4 to possibly a 10 in an hour, maybe hour and a half. And she's like, they just didn't expect it. And they're like, and so I hear him in the room going, oh my gosh, she's a rock star. Like, she's gone from a 4 to a 10, and she's a first time mom, and everything she did paid off. And like, they didn't realize, I guess I could hear them, but it was like really pumping me up. And I was like, yeah, like, sure. And so they were like, we need to get everything ready, and like, I don't know, this baby's gonna come way faster than I thought, and da-da-da-da. And so I'm like getting really excited, and I'm like, okay, so that gave me some hope and some more power behind it. And the other thing was too, is that Lisa was only on call until 8 a.m. So at 8 a.m. they actually had called the next midwife, the secondary midwife that was going to be on shift the next day, to go ahead and come in with her team, her nurse and everything. And so it was so funny, because we didn't really have that time frame, because I mean, they ended up showing up, but we didn't even need them. So okay, so I'm on the toilet. They needed to check me, so I went back to the bed. I lay down. She checks me, and she sticks her finger, and she goes, your baby's head is right here. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, yeah. And I said, okay, can I get in the tub and start pushing? And she goes, well, we just started the tub and it takes about 30 minutes to fill. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I have to do this in here for 30 more minutes. Like, I just wanted to be in the water because I just knew it was going to relax me and just soothe me. And also I really wanted to have a water birth. I just thought that'd be really magical. And so she's like, yep, so basically by the time you finish pushing in here, we'll just hop over in there and then you'll probably deliver him right then. And I was like, oh my God, like I went from a 4 to a 10 because at that point it was 7 o'clock. So from 5:30 in the morning, I was at a 4. And then at that point she checked me and I was a 10. So I was like, holy moly. And we had texted my mom, who was 2 hours away, and also our photographer, who was two and a half hours away. And so they're on their way, but like I literally delivered within the next 2 hours. So they both missed it by like 10 minutes. Literally my mom missed it, I think, by like 8 or 10 minutes. Okay, so that's happening. So I'm in the bedroom now. I get it back up again. I'm on all fours in the bed. I try that. Not comfortable. I'll get back standing up. I'm doing that. So I'm finishing up my labor in the room, standing up on the side of the bed, or not standing on the side of the bed, but standing near the side of the bed with my hands like over it like this. Okay, so I've got this amazing birth team. I've got Tez doing the affirmations, got the music going, the lights, the essential oils, massage, prayer. I'm just going over all my bullet points to make sure I'm hitting everything. Okay, so then they're like, okay, the tub is ready. So I'm like hauling butt in there. I'm like, hurry, hurry. So, because at this point I'm pushing pretty hard in the room and I can start to feel like pressure. It feels like a bowling ball. Literally, it feels like a bowling ball is like sitting in my vagina/butt area. And so at this point I'm exhausted because pushing takes so much of your power. I can't even explain it. Try on top of that being in labor for already 24 hours, at this point like 26 hours, and yeah, just wasn't fun. So I'm pushing. Tub is ready, so I hop in that thing, and the first thing that I do is I'm sitting down, so I'm like this, I'm leaning back like this, and my legs are just straight out in front of me. And so I have a couple pushes that way, but the problem is that every time I would go to push, the tub is really long. So like here's my head, here's my feet, and in between, I'm trying to get some leverage like on the edge of the tub, but every time I would push my feet up to like bear down and push, my butt would float up to the top of the water, and so I wasn't being able to push like down and through like this. And so every time I would push, my body would go up, and it was like I was just pushing just like superficially or something. I don't know. It just wasn't right. And so she's like, Amber, you're fighting it. Like, because at this point I was so tired, and it was painful. This was pretty rough. And so I'm like, when is this going to end? I just remember just thinking like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? And at this point they're like, Amber, he's going to be here any minute. And so whenever they kept telling me that, I'm like, okay, I can do this. But every time I was sitting like this, so the midwife, Lisa's like over here on the side. Ashlyn, the student midwife, had pretty much taken over the birth experience. Lisa was just kind of like a side, like an ear in my ear to help. But Ashlyn was doing all the checking, all of the, let's try this. You know, she was just, oh my gosh, I can't even explain to you. If I could marry this woman, I would. She was amazing. So I'm sitting down, and they're sitting, they're facing me, right? And Tez is over here, like behind, kind of to the side of me, not in the tub with me though, but on the side. And I can see their faces like get really excited because they could see his head start to come out as I was pushing, and then it would stop and come back in, and it would start, come back, and then come back in, and I could feel that happening, and it was pissing me off because I was like, oh my gosh, no, he's right here. Like, I just want to be able to do this. And they're like, this is gonna have to happen. This is getting your what was that word? It's getting your vagina ready, and it's like stretching that tissue out a little bit at a time so that you don't rip. So I was like, okay, but seeing their faces react to what was happening down there wasn't good for me. So I just turned around on all fours, and I was in the tub on all fours, like literally hands and knees. But that took so much energy out of me because I was holding myself up, and I had every ounce of my energy just trying to hold myself up that I was like afraid that I was just gonna like fall down. So again, haven't eaten, hardly drank any water, and hadn't slept in 26 hours at this point. So I'm like, I can't do that. So I just flip back around on my back. So I'm back again like this, but every time I would try to push, it wasn't working. So I said, I need to switch. And Ashlyn's like, do whatever your body needs to do, which that is just the difference, I feel like, in the hospital versus at the birth center with the midwife or at home or whatever. They were just like, do what you need to do. Listen to your body. It was like I didn't even have to ask questions. They obviously gave me pointers and stuff, but for the most part, okay, I don't know what that was. But for the most part, I did whatever I wanted. Like, I just listened to my body. Even though, like, I had never done this before, I was just listening to my body and doing what I needed to do. And so she was like, do it, girl. Do whatever you have to do. So I turned around and got on my knees and just put my arms up on the tub. And Tez was right here in my face. And I pushed like that, like once. And they were like, that's it. That's the position. Don't move. Stay right there. And so I was like, yeah, I can freaking feel this. He's right there. Like, he is right there. At this point, I start to turn into a Paranormal Activity character. It's the only best way I can describe it. I'm glad that part's not on camera. I think that I scared Tez. I kind of scared myself. My throat hurt actually still kind of hurts today, actually. But my throat hurt worse than my vagina did, if that gives you any sort of like picture of how bad I was screaming at this point. This was not a peaceful situation. The contractions were. The delivery was not. It was pretty primal. It was very much animal-like. It's the best way I can describe it, y'all, but had to happen. That's what I needed to do. And I remember Lisa going, yes, that's it. Get into that. Dig into that. She said, find your mojo and do what you have to do. And for me, that was like getting mad and getting pissed off. And I remember just yelling, come on, Kingsley. Come on, Kingsley. Get out, Kingsley. Come on. Mama's right here waiting on you. I mean, I was just talking to him, and I was just like trying to have this conversation with him, and just, you know, I was putting into the universe and putting out there what I needed to hear, what I needed to happen. I was like, open up, come on, come down, come out, like just that terminology. I was just putting all of that out there and speaking it and, you know, making it happen. So I'm on all fours, or sorry, on my knees. I push. I can feel him. He starts to crown and his head is out, and Lisa gets in my face and she's like, Amber, do you want to tear? No? Okay, sit right here. And I'm like, what? I don't want to at this point. Like, I don't want to sit here because it is the worst. That is the worst. You're crowning. Your vagina is literally stretching out so that your baby's head can come out. And you just have to sit there and let that tissue adjust. Most of the time, whenever women tear, it's because they get to that point and it's so painful. If you have no meds, it gets to that point, they're so painful, they're just like pushing it, and then they just like rip it out. A lot of other times, when women tear, it's because they have an epidural and they can't feel what's going on down there, so they can't even feel the ring of fire, so they usually just push right on through it. 80% of women tear, and there's different like stages of it. Stage 1 is just like a couple of stitches. Stage 2 is like a little bit worse. Stage 3 is a little bit worse, and stage 4 is literally where you rip from your vagina from your vagina to your butthole. So you just have like one big rip tear. So obviously we're trying to prevent all this from happening, because at the end of all this, if you have to get stitched up, right, you have no epidural, so they have to do that like with just some lidocaine. So just think of having a baby and then having to get like stitched up with like a needle. Okay, no thanks. So I'm sitting there with his head hanging out of my vagina, and I'm like, okay, so I'm just sitting there. It's about 30 seconds, but I was praying for a contraction at this point, because she was telling me, next contraction, you can push and it'll be done. And I'm like, okay. Well, usually you get, you know, the head comes out, and then you have to go through like 2 or 3 rounds of contractions to get the rest of the body out. I was like, hell no. We doing this right now. So, again, his head is out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I remember going, ow, 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 like, because it's the only thing that would make me feel better. And then the next contraction came, and I pushed, y'all, like I have never pushed before. I mean, I was using every single ounce of energy that I had left. I will tell you, before this, whenever I was laying back like this, I was falling asleep between between pushes. I was so exhausted. I literally can remember just like being like this and pushing, and then like literally going. and then it would wake me up like from a deep sleep, and then I'd be like, and like start pushing again, and then I would just fall back asleep. I mean, it was insane. They gave me a honey stick right in between that to give me some energy, and so I literally just like put it in my mouth and like just zipped it down, and it's just like honey, so just give you straight sugar, so energy. So I did that, but that was all that I had in my stomach at that point. So again, ring of fire sitting there, boom, and then she's like, okay, next contraction, push, and he's gonna come out a little bit more. I remember going, Ashlyn, oh, she was behind me. I was like, Ashlyn, just rip him out. Just grab him by the hair and just rip him out. Just take him out. I don't want to do this anymore. And they were just laughing kind of, but not really. And I was like, just take him out. Whenever you see his head, just grab him and yank him. They obviously can't do that. But then I was kind of laughing at that point, and I remember someone saying, look at her being so funny right here at the end. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm delirious. This is insane. And so at that point, it was about 8 o'clock. And so, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to like rearrange. So he was born at 8:12. And so, like I said, the 8 o'clock team had come in. So at this point I had Tez, I had Ashlyn, my student nurse midwife, my midwife Lisa, and then her midwife, and then the nurse with her, and the nurse that was coming on duty to take over. So I had like 7 or 8 people in there with me, and they're all just like pumping me up and just like, you know, you got this, you got this. Like, I feel like some people want it to be very soothing and very calm and just chill, relaxed. That's what they need. I needed like a stadium full of people just like, yeah, you got this. Like, I don't know why, but that's what I needed. And that's what they like picked up on that very fast. And so they were all just like, come on girl, you got this. Like, just coaching me through it. And Tez was just right there in front of me, just like, you know, I don't even know what he was doing honestly, but he was just there. I just needed him there. Originally he was gonna catch Kingsley as he came out, but we just didn't have time for that whole transition. And it worked out perfectly the way that it was, because I just needed him right there in my face. Like, I just needed to feel him just right there breathing on me and just breathing with me. And he was still talking me, just saying like little stuff here and there, talking to Kingsley. So the next push, I pushed like hell. I pushed like I've never done anything else in my entire life. I mean, never put that much energy into anything. Even in a 6-week period, I put more energy into that push right there. And he flew out. Like, she stuck her hand in and kind of helped his shoulder come out, and then he flew. So she had her hands behind me, like waiting to catch him, and he flew in between her hands, like back past her. So he's like, boom. He actually had bruises on his eyebrows and his eyes and his nose because he came out so rapidly, like a rocket, like a spaceship. Because I was like, F that, I'm not doing this anymore. So he does. He just like flies out. And so he comes, right, so I'm sitting on my knees like this. So he comes out behind me. So I'm in the tub like this on my hands, on my knees. He comes out behind me, underneath me. She catches him, brings him up, gives him a little air, and then takes him back underneath the water in between my legs, and then puts him on my chest. And then I like got off my knees and came back, and then he was on my chest like this. So he's immediately right here, immediate skin to skin. But whenever he came out, he was kind of blue, and he wasn't really crying. He wasn't really active. He wasn't like, I mean, he wasn't just like limp noodle, but he also wasn't like me like you usually see. I was so delirious and exhausted and just shocked that that just happened that I don't think I put 2 and 2 together. But everyone in the room came over to him and was just like shaking him and wiping him down, and like he was on my chest at that point, and I was just like, what's happening? Like, what just even happened? I don't understand. And I was just like, here, y'all take him, do what you have to do, because I could tell that something was kind of like wrong. And but again, I didn't feel panicky at all. Like, I didn't feel like something was wrong. I could just tell that like something was off, I guess. The mood just kind of shifted a little bit. But the midwives, their faces never changed. They were like, oh, hey Kingsley, look at your mama, and da 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 da. So like, instead of saying things like, come on buddy, we need you to breathe, we need you to cry, we need you to do this, they weren't doing any of that. They were just like, their faces were so calm, and they were just like, oh my goodness, you're here, we just need to hear you cry so that your mama can hold you. And just the different way they handled that could have been handled differently. I feel like it was so great, because it could have been so traumatic, I think. So they're spanking him, you know, trying to get him to turn pink instead of blue. And at that point, I kind of started to like, oh, there was like one of the midwives goes, get the something equipment, which is like the NICU resuscitation equipment. And so I was like, wait, what? Why do you need that? Why would you need that? And so that's whenever I start to panic a little bit. But it was strange because even though I say that, I never really like, I always knew, like I always felt like he's good. He just needs a second. Just give him a second. And that's literally all he needed. He needed like 60 seconds. And then he started crying. He started pinking up. He was fine. And they put him back on my chest and everything was good. So I feel like that could have been like a much more traumatic, but just the way they handled things and the way that I was getting in my like spiritual mindset, I just knew that God was there. I just knew that I was covered with safety and security and protection, and I was fine. I mean, I was obviously a little bit scared, I guess, and a little bit nervous once she said that get the something equipment. And Tess said he was like freaking out because he saw him and he was like, that's not normal. It also could be related to my exhaustion, but yeah, I was okay. I was like, we've had scares during my pregnancy and things have always turned out to be fine. He made it this far. We're good. Like, this is it. And so he was. So they put him on my chest. It was magical, but he was ugly, y'all. He was not cute. Kingsley's gonna be listening to this and looking at this like 20 years down the road and be like, dang, Mom. Yesterday, Tez told my mom, because my mom was staying with us until yesterday, he said that he was standing there, he goes, yeah, when Kingsley came out, it scared me because he was so ugly. Y'all, everyone's like, oh, when it's your baby, you just think they're the cutest thing ever. No. Tess and I both were like, what is this? Like, send this back. We didn't order it. Because he was just not cute. And like I said, he started out blue, so he wasn't really cute that way. His head was so cone-shaped. Like, oh my God, it was so bad. His eyes were like protruding. He had bruises here and here and here. So he was like I don't even know how to, it was just, it was not cute at all. But he was also my baby, and it was also still so magical that I was just obsessed with him, and I just wanted to like take a bite of his face right there. So, I mean, at the same time, he wasn't very cute, but I remember saying, I looked down, I was like, oh, it's okay. You'll get cuter. That's probably my first words to him. So that was kind of funny. So Ashley, my student nurse midwife, was like, Amber, do you want to feel the cord? Because, right, so he's on my chest, the cord is still inside of me, and then my placenta is still connected into my uterus. And she's like, do you want to feel the cord pulsing? And I'm like, oh, yes, of course. Like, you know me, I'm a weirdo. So I stick my hand right there, and the cord, the umbilical cord, is like you can feel the blood, like coming out of me into him, still pumping blood to him. And it was like, oh my gosh, y'all, this is like the lifeline that's been keeping us together and connected and like switching things from me to him and everything. And it's just like, what? It was so cool. It was like rubbery, like the actual umbilical cord felt super weird, but just that blood coming to him was like, oh my gosh, this is me and him. This is the biggest connection I'm ever gonna have with anyone. We're literally connected on a physical, biological level. It was just insane. So I love that. Tez cut the cord, of course, and then after that, they gave Kingsley to Tez for him to do skin to skin, and then I delivered my placenta. So that's not as bad as it sounds. You're like, what? You have to deliver something else? So you are still having contractions, but I really couldn't feel them, especially not anything compared to what I had just done, right? So so she's like, okay, she's feeling my belly. So she's like pushing on the top of my belly, like right here. She's like pushing, trying to get it to like, you know, like loosen and like come apart from the top of my belly. And then she's like, it's not ready yet. So basically she pushes down there and pulls the umbilical cord, and then I push, and then it came out. So so Lisa was like, stand up, do a squat, like a wide squat, and whenever you're coming down, try to like push down. So I did. So I stood up, pushed down as I was squatting, and then she kind of pulled and pushed, and then it just flopped right out. And honestly, the placenta was gorgeous. I mean, that sounds so weird to say, but it was beautiful. And actually, the photographer was there at this point. Or no, not at that point, but later on, she ended up coming, and she was able to get pictures of it. And it is just, I mean, like, if you're not into blood, I still feel like it's really not the same as seeing something super gross, because it's just like beautiful and magical. But yeah, so anyways, I'll post pictures of it later. it is just, oh, it was so beautiful. Anyways, okay, so deliver the placenta. He's probably getting kind of hungry because I've been on here for a while, so I'm gonna have to go soon. So fill the cord, skin to skin. Oh, so they checked me for tears. They needed to do a vaginal exam, and I had no tears, y'all, 0. My vagina's great and good and so lovely. I was so happy that that's not an issue. So yeah, so didn't have any tears there, and they check your uterus like every 15 minutes to make sure that it's hardening up, because then if not, you can start to bleed. They have to monitor your bleeding, things like that. So even though like Kingsley's obviously #1, but I was still being checked like every 15-20 minutes to like check your bleeding, check this, check that, to make sure that I'm like recovering okay, because I just literally had like a really big wound come into my stomach and, you know, out, and so like there's internal bleeding happening, so we just need to make sure that I'm clotting correctly and all of that. But I was, and it's so funny, I just love this because it reminds me like how freaking powerful women are, and just made me feel like a badass, because I was laying on my back and she was feeling my stomach, and she's like, dang girl, did you do core your whole pregnancy? And I was like, I mean, I did, you know, I worked out, I kept up what I could, did yoga, did this. She's like, I mean, I literally can't feel your uterus. I can't tell the difference in your uterus and your abs, because your abs are already coming back. And I was like, yes. So that was really awesome to hear. And yeah, so they did that. And then afterwards, I got an herbal bath, which is like, they drained the bathtub, cleaned it, and then filled it back up with hot water and put these herbs and supplements in it. And so the herbs, they boiled them and then put them in the water, so that it's kind of like a green tea looking. And then you get in, mom gets in. Oh my God, it felt so good. So I'm like, I was wearing a sports bra and no panties, and it's just like a healing for your tissues. And it's just so relaxing, and like your body just, oh my gosh, I can't explain it. And then once the water cools off to a certain temperature, they brought Kingsley in there, and he was able to take a bath with me. So we didn't wash him or anything like that. He was just like floating in the water, you know, like right there at the little border. But yeah, it was just so sweet, because we got to just kind of bond, and Tez was right there and he was playing with us, and we got pictures. And again, at this point, so before I got out of the bathtub the first time, my mom walks in and she's like, oh, because like Tez has him in his arms, and so, but he had like just been born. She missed him by like maybe 10 minutes. And our photographer, again, she walked in like 15 minutes later and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, it was just priceless how everything happened, because he was delivered at 8:12 a.m. and I mean, on Wednesday, like I was literally in labor for 3 hours. I mean, I was in labor like forever, but I was like an active labor where I dilated so fast, and it was just crazy. That doesn't happen. They told me that I had a picture perfect birth, so that was really awesome to hear. That all of my, you know, obviously it was all God, but I just feel like a lot of my preparation and the things that I did throughout my pregnancy really paid off. And so yeah, was really, really proud of myself. We did photos after that. We did breastfeeding to make sure he was latching correctly. We did erythromycin in his eyes, the vitamin K shot, just to protect him. And then Tez got to weigh him, so I'll post pictures of that later. It's really cute. And then they measured him, so he weighed 6 pounds and 12 ounces. Thank God. If he would have been any heavier, my vagina, poor thing. And then he got to stamp his little feet. So they put ink on the bottom of his feet and stamped the wall, and we got to write his name and everything on there. So I'll post pictures of all of that. Yeah, it was after that we stayed at the birth center. We only were there for 4 hours after, or 5. So I gave birth at 8 a.m. and then we went home at 1. We did all the discharge paperwork. Ashlyn, student midwife, went over everything with me. Y'all, I can't explain the amount of support, and oh my gosh, it was just the craziest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. She was just so great. She told me if I wanted to sit down and talk about my birth later, like in 2 weeks from now, just to kind of talk it over and explain what happened and what could have happened and what should have happened or whatever, like we could do that. I mean, she was offering everything. They just helped us with everything. They taught us how to swaddle. They helped us while we got him dressed. They helped us pick out pictures, photos, oh my gosh, clothes for his pictures. They got us a birthday cake and had a little 0 candle on there to sing happy birthday to him because it was his birthday. I mean, y'all, I just can't explain it. My mom was like, who are these people? They're like angels from heaven. And I was like, yeah. I mean, it was so worth it. I don't think I'd ever deliver in a hospital, ever. Sorry. It was just the most magical experience I've ever gone through in my entire life, and I would do it over and over and over again to see my sweet little baby because he's so perfect. He's crying right now though because he is hungry, I think. So I'm trying to hurry and finish, but anyway, so we did all of that, and then yeah, we left at 1. We went straight home. We got some Chick-fil-A. I took a shower, went to sleep. Woke up at 4 p.m., breastfed him, and then that was it. So yeah, pretty quick turnaround because yeah, it was just much different than at the hospital. We had a 24-hour checkup with the midwife, came out to our apartment 24 hours later, checked him, did all the jaundice screening and cardiac tests and all of that. He passed with flying colors. And then we went the next day, so Friday, we went to our pediatrician to, again, get checked and everything. So yeah, Kingsley's doing great. I was going to have him come like as a little guest star, but he's not in the mood for that, so I will maybe do that later. But yeah, I hope that I think that I got everything. Tez just said, chill, bro. So yeah, if y'all have any questions about anything, please ask me. I tried to put every detail in here, but it's hard because it was just so much and so crazy, and my brain's just, was shut off. So, yeah, so thanks guys for tuning in, and I am just over the moon excited. I'm just a whole new person. I'm a mama officially, y'all. It's crazy. So I'll be posting some other videos later just about kind of like newborn life, you know, maybe like a 2-week check-in with you guys to let y'all know how we're hanging in there. Right now we're doing really good. Just his little cries in between whenever he gets hungry or really sad. But we're working it and we're getting our routine going. My mom was here for the first 2 days and then she left, so that was really helpful. That was just like, oh, an extra set of eyes to like make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do. But he's still alive, so yay for us. But yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go feed my baby, get some of these, my boobs, y'all. Pray for them. Pray for my boobs. Seriously, it's the worst. Anyways, so I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and please blow up my phone with questions because I'm literally doing nothing. We're in quarantine, we're in a pandemic, and I'm with a newborn at home, so bored, y'all. Okay, thanks.